Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Unstruggle Mindset Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Glenn. Thank you guys so much for tuning in today. I'm excited that you're here. Do me a quick favor, real quick, before I get started on this video. If you haven't yet, follow the podcast and like this episode. And of course, give us a rating on your favorite podcast provider. I'd greatly appreciate it very much. It really helps the podcast grow. So if you could just help me out, I would really greatly appreciate it. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you so much for tuning in. If you don't mind, subscribe to the channel, click that little bell notification so you turn notifications on and you don't miss another upload. So after all that being said, thank you guys so much for tuning in. On today's episode, I'm going to be talking about advice, who you should be getting advice from, who you shouldn't be getting advice from, and why some of the advice that you've gotten over the years is probably bad advice. Now, this is going to be a really tricky topic, and it's going to be, it's going to be a difficult one to talk about, but it's something that somebody has to talk about. So advice. Whenever you do anything in life, just about, you want to ask your friends, you want to ask your family, you want to ask somebody who knows you what you should do. Now, sometimes that person leads you in the wrong direction. Sometimes that person can lead you in the right direction. It just depends on what you want to do and who you're asking. So with that, sorry, I got something in my mouth. But so with asking for advice, everybody's heard the old saying just about where you don't want to ask somebody for advice that's not doing or hasn't done what you want to do. So for me, being a life coach, I don't want to ask somebody who is a dental hygienist how to be a life coach, because it doesn't make sense. Why would I ask a dentist about being a life coach? Because number one, they're probably not going to know. Number two, if they do know what a life coach is, they're not going to be able to give me solid advice because they're a dentist. So it all comes down to who you ask and what has that person done. Now, for example, say you're fresh out of high school and you're trying to choose a major to go to college because you want to go to college, you want to make good money, you want to have a solid career, things like that. But you ask somebody who dropped out of high school, and had to work ever since then. And it's one of those things where that person is not going to be able to give you solid advice about college because they didn't go to college. However, they will be able to give you advice about, you should go to college because I didn't go to college and look at me. Now, in those kind of circumstances, it kind of explains itself where that would be decent advice, because that person will be able to tell you about the struggles that they went through, the things that they've seen, the things that they've done, and why they feel it should be a good thing to go to college, because they have that argument like, hey, I didn't go to college. I'm still, after all these years, making, I don't know, $19 an hour. Whereas if you go to college, you come out of college making way more money than that right off the bat. So in that instance, that would be decent advice. Now, if you want to ask about entrepreneurship from the older generation, somebody, in their 50s, 60s, something like that, they're going to tell you that you're crazy, that you need to go to college, you need to buckle down, yada, yada, yada. But college is not meant for everyone, and that's okay. Entrepreneurship is not meant for everyone, and that's okay. It's one of those things, you have to make that decision for yourself. But in making that decision, you're always going to ask for advice from somebody. So with the older generation, 50s, 60s, they were raised in a time where it was graduate from school, go to college, get a career, save up for retirement, or graduate from high school, start your career, save up for your retirement, retire. It was one of those things where those were the sets for that time. You either went to college or you started a career. And that's why you see so many people like they retired from, big companies like Ford Motor Company, General Electric, things like that. I know quite a few people that retired from Ford, being from the Louisville area and having the truck plant and the automotive plant in Louisville. And I know a lot of people that retired from GE, considering that GE Appliance Park is in Louisville, Kentucky. So I've seen the best of both worlds. And I've also seen people who went to college, graduated from college, started their career that way at a much younger age. They're doing better or yeah, they're doing better than the people that started out in their career. So when it comes to advice, you have to look for the person that you're asking what they've done and how they go about doing things, because it doesn't make sense to ask somebody that went to college how to move up in your job that you started fresh out of high school, because they don't know, because they got their degree and they took that route. So they started at a higher job to begin with. So take that into consideration. It's not necessarily bad advice, it's outdated advice. So if you're asking somebody that's 50, 60 years old about starting a business, they're going to tell you go to college, get a degree in business, yada yada yada, the whole 9 yards, versus, oh yeah, take that risk, go ahead, start your business. It's one of those things you have to ask yourself certain questions, but they don't know the questions to ask because they didn't do it. So if you want to start a business, I suggest finding somebody that is an entrepreneur that owns their own business. Go to a local restaurant that's locally owned. Go to a local mom and pop shop. Ask them. A lot of people are willing to share their advice, and they're willing to share their experience with people that want to listen. And those are the people that you need to be listening to for advice, not the people that are older and they're set on the college route because that's the way it was for their time. Now, if you want to go to college and you're confused about your major or what you want to do in life, then there's plenty of assessments out there that you could take to figure out which route you should take as far as college and a degree. But a lot of people are out there, they go undecided to college and they get a degree. I know one person that we grew up with, he had a 4-year degree in video game design in Kentucky. Now, granted, he could go somewhere else and do amazing with that degree, but in Kentucky, there's nowhere that's making video games. There's no reason that somebody with that degree would succeed, but he was always complaining like, oh, I can't get a job with my degree, blah, blah, blah. I'd have to move away. Well, that's kind of self-explanatory because there's no game development companies in Kentucky. So that should have been common sense. Or there's people, they have a bachelor's degree in art or bachelor's degree in, general education or something like that, but they can't find a job with it. That's because those degrees are meant for people that want to take that route. Usually people with a bachelor's degree in general education go on to be teachers, or people with a bachelor's degree in arts that, that's not something, it's area specific. It's not something you could take anywhere and get a job with. So you want to make sure that when it comes to getting a degree in college, that you're asking advice from the right people who have what you want or have done what you want to do. And it goes back to the same thing with the situation with the dental hygienist. I'm not going to ask a dental hygienist for life advice. I'm just not, because it wouldn't make sense. Now I'm going to ask a life coach for life advice, or I'm going to ask somebody that's doing what I want to do or has been where I want to go for advice, if that makes any sense. So like I said, just because you're getting advice doesn't necessarily mean that it's bad advice. It is misguided and it may be outdated. So really take that into consideration. Don't get mad at your parents because they're forcing you, or it seems like they're forcing you to go the college route, but you don't want to go to college. You want to open a food truck, or you want to open your own restaurant, or you want to start your own business. If you find a need that you can fill and something that you want to do, then start your business. There is thousands and thousands and thousands of life coaches out there that specialize in entrepreneurship, myself included, who can help you on that journey, who can get you started. You can go to the Small Business Administration and they'll be able to talk to you about stuff. There's places you can go to get certain advice. If you want to go to college, again, you could take multiple assessments. You can go to the college and talk to counselors or talk to advisors. Every college has advisors. So it's just getting the advice from the right spot. Now, I know it's in our nature that when we need advice, the first place we go to is our parents. Now, I've been recently reading Dean Graziosi's book, The Millionaire Success Habits. And in one of the chapters, I believe it was chapter 4 or chapter 3, he was talking about how his parents have been married multiple times. So if he wanted advice on marriage or relationship, he's not going to go to them roughly because they're obviously not good at being married because they've been married multiple times. Or it's one of those things where, you know, they look for the toxic relationships or something, whatever it may be. So he knew that as much as he loved his parents, just because you're not going to ask your parents for advice doesn't mean you don't love your parents. It doesn't mean that you have to stop talking to them, because regardless of what happens, parents will always support you, whatever journey you decide to take, even if they don't agree with it. Even if they don't agree with it, they're going to support you to a certain extent. My mother 100% supports my business as a life coach and supports the podcast and things like that. She absolutely loves it. And she knows that there's a need for it. And she knows that I can fill that need. So I have that support system, which is the next thing I want to talk about on this segment. And when you're getting advice and things like that, you have to have a good support system. You have to have a group of people that are there to support you, to maybe kick you in the ass at times when you need it. And it's one of the it's just one of those things along the journey. It has to happen. You have to have some sort of support network, and it doesn't have to be your family. It could be somebody that you meet, you know, that you find as a mentor. It could be somebody that you met in a mutual group that has the same views as you do. Just somebody that's going to hold you accountable, and somebody that's going to say, okay, well, you reached this goal. Now what are you going to do? Because you can't just reach your goals and then stop what you're doing. When you reach a goal, you set a higher goal. And that's the best advice that I can give you, because that's something that I have done. I set a goal, I reached it. I was like, okay, well, I reached this. Now I'm going to go a little bit higher. Excuse me. And then from there, you're just going to continue growing, and it's going to be nothing but good for you. Yes, it's going to be pain along the way. It's going to be a lot of work. It's going to be hard as hell, but it's going to be worth it in the long run. So I know I've gone in a million different directions on this podcast, and I tend to do that a lot, but yes, that's the thing. When it comes to advice, be cautious of who you ask for advice. Consider, and don't get mad when they give you advice that's not in sync with what you wanted to hear, because like I said, you have those generational gaps. You have those people that have these beliefs burned into their brain. You got to get out of high school. You got to work here. You got to retire. You got to get out of high school. You got to go to college. You got to get your degree, get a good job, retire. It's one of those things that it's burnt into their brain. That's all they know because they haven't explored otherwise. So don't get mad when you get bad advice. Don't get mad when you get misguided advice. Take it with a grain of salt. Look for the people that are doing what you want to do, or the people that have done what you want to do. Ask advice from the people who are where you want to be. So that's all I got for you on this episode. I'm sorry if it was a little everywhere, because as always, my podcast is not scripted. I kind of take notes and I know what I want to talk about, and then I just go with it. And then my brain has other activities that it wants to do as well along the way. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you like this episode, please share it on your social media. You can tag me on Facebook at Abundant Life and Mind. You can tag me on Instagram at unstruggle_mindset, or on Twitter at unstrugglemindset. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it so much. Once again, if you're watching on YouTube, thank you. Subscribe to the channel, click the bell notification so you don't miss another upload. And as always, have a great day. I will see you guys in a couple days. Thank you so much.